fresh start, new start on 93 FM. Welcome back. It's now time for Counterpoint. It's the segment that has a lot of counterpoints, redundant, but hey, the segment will continue the coverage of the health sector. The health sector is something we've been looking at for the past couple of days, actually from last week. But on Monday, we'd have spoken to Dr. Cianna Lunan, who told us what's happening on the ground as a practitioner himself. This morning, we are shifting focus to the medical students who are in training and some about to take their place in the job world, more likely not in Jamaica. But first, let's play the same clip we played on Monday. This clip was sourced by the Midday News on Television Jamaica. This issue is too important to avoid because, as I said, the student doctors might not be coming out to a job in Jamaica. They might have to migrate based on the job markets. Let's go to the clip. Huh?
Go to the Caribbean. Not my word.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says he'll be making another request for additional posts to be created for doctors to work in the public health system. Dr. Tufton, who was speaking on TVJ's All Angles last night, said going into the next financial year, the request will be made to the Finance Ministry. Now, the Gleaner reported on Sunday that after successful interviews at some facilities, several doctors are still awaiting confirmation of their contracts by the Health Ministry. The stories from doctors currently working in the health sector, voiced and portrayed by some of our team members because the doctors were afraid to speak publicly due to fear of victimization.
7 days per week. Yes, at most hospitals, doctors are working 7 days per week. You are doing this day after day with no break. Ask for leave, you probably won't get it because there isn't anybody to replace you. So you are working like this non-stop.
So when doctors make mistakes and patients die or suffer, it is because the system is understaffed and we are burdened and cannot say anything.
We stand on our feet for hours on end, 36 and sometimes 52-hour shifts, going and going. No food, no water, no time to even eat or drink, even if we had food or water. Just seeing patients back to back, falling asleep trying to take a patient's history because we can't stay awake no matter how we try.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says when he assumed office, the issues raised by the doctors existed. He says the government has put a plan in place to deal with the problems.
While that kind of long-term fix or medium-term fix is on the way, hold on. I understand that there is a possibility that Cabinet can approve temporary positions which the Ministry of Finance could approve. So why are we not putting in place that very urgently required temporary fix?
So Cabinet, the Ministry of Finance and Cabinet has approved nearly 2,000 additional positions for nurses because their problem has been a lot more chronic than the doctors, to be totally frank.
So when will new posts be created for doctors?
The idea is, given that we have dealt with the nurses now, adding a number of additional posts, the idea is that going into the next financial year, where the plan is, and the next financial year meaning next year, we will make the request again based on the strategic plan we have to the Ministry of Finance and the Cabinet to add additional posts. And we
permanent posts?
Yes, to create a greater number of established posts.
What happened to the temporary fix? Why aren't you pursuing the temporary fix while you're doing that?
What is the temporary? You mean to hire more doctors? Well, it's a function of the resources.
The doctors have argued that they've been working in difficult situations, even with a lack of resources, lack of equipment, and the lack of medication.
I refuse to accept that there is a lack of medication.
What?
I refuse to accept that the National Health Fund, hold on, that the National Health Fund, which spends 7-8...
You refuse to accept that there's a lack of medication?
Totally refuse to accept.
Vashon Brown. And the opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Maurice Guy, says the government must find a way to employ more doctors. Now, during his sectoral debate in Parliament this week, Dr. Guy blasted the health minister over his reaction to the news that doctors are terminated because the ministry could not accommodate them under the current financial budgets.
They didn't just arrive overnight. They have been training for 5 years. They have been working for 2 years.
Yes.
If the minister's response is that the university was training more than they ought to, then plans should have been made from long ago to accept that cadre of doctors into the system, Mr. Speaker. It cannot be a situation that overnight you are being aware of something and you're asked to make decisions. But guess what? The country needs them. Find a way to employ them, Mr. Speaker, and do the right thing because our country needs these doctors.
Wow. It's a serious situation. It's a serious situation. But you know, we can't only talk about it ourselves because we're not medical students or medical practitioners. So we have with us Cianna Lunan.
Yeah, she is the executive member of the Jamaica Medical Students Association, and she's gonna give us some insight. Good morning, Cianna.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to hear from you. So at first, we just want to hear your thoughts on this whole idea of not enough jobs being in the job market for doctors. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, our initial reaction was definitely shocked because a lot of us, upon entering medical school, we felt some sense of security because medicine, like other professions like teachers and police officers and other civil servants, we thought would be deemed essential workers, and so being deemed essential workers would mean that it would guarantee at least some level of job security.
Yeah. But Cianna, for years, what I'd like to say, as I said, medical doctors have had some sense of security. Nurses have had some sense of security, but people in other areas, probably social sciences, medical sciences, other areas, they would not have that sense of security. They would have to go out seeking jobs, and there has been that divide for years. So now, when the budget can't necessarily maintain it, then what would the students who would now have to, when you leave university, would have to find somewhere to work, or else you can't be able to take care of your bills or your student loans or whatever it is. So what are on the minds of the students at this time?
Some of the things I've heard is that they feel demotivated, we're scared, we're concerned, we're anxious, right? Because as medical students, more than anybody else, we can empathize with the doctors because we see ourselves in them. Because soon enough, we'll be walking in their shoes. The students are worried about life after graduation.
Yeah, we totally understand that. So tell me something, Cianna. As it relates to everything that has been happening, you guys, you have like rotation in the hospitals, correct?
Yes.
Is it that process isn't as smooth as it should be, or does that process affect learning because of this reported lack of medication, lack of resources, doctors and consultants being very tired? Like, does that affect the rotation for the medical students and the learning platform?
I just started third year, but I haven't been on the clinical scene as yet. But I can imagine that being in that environment and experiencing it alongside the doctors can take a toll on the students, and it does give them some insight as to what they'll be experiencing when they begin to practice on their own or begin working in the hospital full time. So I know that we all had different reasons for going into medicine, but now the level of, I guess, enthusiasm or the level of assurance that we had that this is something that we would find worthwhile doing. It can, I think it has been deterred to some extent because of what we're hearing and what we're experiencing alongside the doctors. So yeah.
So my final question to you actually is probably a bit more personal. Probably it goes directly to you or to other students. But for you, looking at the job market, looking at the world at large, around the world, doctors are always a necessity. As you said, you guys would have thought, yes, it's an essential service, we'd have job security. But now, based on the resources, based on our status as a developing country, we don't have the resources, which I think the government would need to provide. As they said, they have some long-term solution. But what are your thoughts, or what prospects are you looking at as it relates to migrating either for work or to stay to a country that can sustain you and pay you to be a doctor to your fullest extent?
Well, yes. It wouldn't just be me. It would be most of us medical students at this point who are considering to migrate. A lot of persons are thinking of doing the external exams like the MCCQE to go to Canada, the USMLE to go to the US, the PLAB to go to the UK, and even the AMC to go to Australia. And the thing is, it's not that we don't want to stay in Jamaica and contribute to the development of our country and give back. But as you mentioned, we graduate owing millions of dollars in student loans. Cost of living is high, comparatively high in Jamaica. We have there are family members to support. So there's a lot to consider when making that decision, right? And so, all in all, we have to do what's best for us and our families, despite the earnest desire to actually stay and to give back.
Wow.
I get you. So,
Yeah.
do you think, though, from a student's opinion, of course, that we will have less medical students going forward, seeing that, this is what is happening in the country? Is there a sense of demotivation to say, all right, I don't want to be a doctor, it's not going to work out peaceably? Is that the narrative that you're hearing from the medical students and for those who wanted to study medicine?
To be honest, I don't think that if somebody truly has the passion for medicine, because has the passion and love for the medical sciences, and they really can't see themselves doing any other career, I think that those persons would still apply. To be honest, right? Because if there is a certain kind of fulfillment that comes with doing medicine and being a medical doctor. So it might have some effect, but not something so drastic as to have a great decrease in the number of persons applying for medicine.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Cianna, for joining us this morning. We really like the fact that you have given students perspective on this matter. And listeners, we're going for a break and we'll be right back. We'll still be with you in